Transition of grade 6 to 7 will be a transition of coming from primary into secondary, because we are saying they are transitioning to secondary. They are not remaining in their classroom of grade 8. They are going physically into another space. So we did a national audit. While some schools were clearly showing they would be overstretched by having an extra class, the data was also showing that in this country, there exists secondary schools with extra infrastructure that is not being used. For example, a school that is having extra 10 classrooms. So we made recommendations based on the findings and based on the fact that the major TOR had the words effective implementation. We knew we had to make recommendations that demonstrate cost effectiveness and rationalization of resources. So we made a recommendation and said, yes, the data, and we have the names of each and every school. So if we say this one has more classrooms, we are talking of school X. If this one needs extra classrooms, we are saying this is school X. And so we made recommendations and said it's very important to rationalize existing infrastructure and resources so that resources can be directed where they are needed most. We also made recommendation, rationalize the human resource that exists, look at their qualification, and see how we can optimize the human resource that exists to meet the CBC. That does not mean that there will not be need to employ more teachers. There are schools that will require an extra classroom for year 2023. If you are single stream, there are schools that will require one extra classroom. If there are 4 streams, there are schools that will require those 4 classrooms for year 2023. But this requires rationalization considering the economic situations we are in, and so is the human resource. One school, maybe with 2 streams, it hardly has 100 children. Another one, 50. Another one, 200, and so on. So our recommendation was this: using the GPS to completely confirm that these are walking distance of the same catchment. This is a situation where some of them could be merged to optimally use the primary school infrastructure that exists, release one of the infrastructure for the school, and create a secondary school without having to build classrooms, which would mean that the government would only invest in other infrastructure that is required in a secondary school, like the labs and so on. We also made a recommendation and said where institutions are in close proximity, they should be ready to share resources, infrastructural resources like sports infrastructure and so on. We went even a step further and saying if there is a technical institution, you don't have to ask government to build a workshop for a neighboring secondary school. And there are people in this country who have experienced that when it came to woodwork or metalwork or whatever in their high schools, they would use a neighboring institution. These are Kenyan institutions that have been built using public funds. So we encouraged the sharing of resources as much as possible.